Welcome all. Now we are going to see the cognitive models. What are models basically? Models are used to guide the creation of an interface. It can be linguistic, physical, architectural, and even several. Now we will see the common categorization. The goal and the task hierarchies of the model are mental processing, how we divide and conquer it. The goal versus task is goals are intentions, tasks are actions. We have Gomes model under that. Goals are internal. What are the issues under that? The granularity, conflict, error, and routine type behavior. The techniques under that is a Gomes model. Goals, operations, methods, and selection. That is your Gomes model. Then the cognitive complexity theory, CCT theory, is another technique under the modeling. Then HTA, hierarchical task analysis, is another technique under the modeling. So now we'll start with the Gomes modeling. What is Gomes? Goals, operators, methods, and selection. Under goals, what the user wants is a goal. Operators, what are the functions used for performing those goals? Methods are nothing but the sub-goals. Selection is you're going to select or choose between the computation methods. If you look at this is an example of Gomes. The goal is to close an window. So select the goal using the menu method. You can use like mouse to do it, or using a keyboard you can use. For example, first we use a mouse, then move mouse to file menu, then you pull down it, file menu, then finally it is close option. If the next option is chosen via your keyboard, then Control W can be used, your keys can be used for closing the window. Here, you can have two options, but which option to use depends. Rule 1, you select the use menu method. Rule 2, if application game, then automatically you can select your Control W method. In the sense, depending on the application, which method can be chosen. The same. The other example of the Gomes model, CCT. If you look at the CCT, it is a parallel modeling. It is going to measure the depth of the goal structure depending on the number of rules and the comparison. It has linguistic notations in it, like Backwestner form and action, task, grammar using the tag. Here, it is an example of BNF. Basic syntax can be non-terminal, whereas an expression contains terminals or even non-terminals, like drawing a line, selecting a line, choosing points, last mouse, post mouse, all these. What is a tag? Task, action, grammar. It is for using inconsistency more explicitly shown and using the parameterized grammatical rules. Consistency in tag, if you look at it, you can have Unix commands. For example, these three Unix commands are being described. Here in BNF, these Unix commands can be described, whereas in non-BNF, automatically, it is less consistent in grammatical ways. So it is better to use tags. Other uses of tags, uses existing knowledge can be increased. The concurrence between the features in the commands is again high. These can be modeled as a derived rules. The next model is the keystroke model. Initially, we saw what is the Gomes model. This keystroke model is based on the Gomes model. It is a three-state model. When you look at three-state, we have 0, 1, and 2. Initially, for example, let's take moving a mouse with no buttons. Then you can use a light pen. Pen can be used, or the mouse, you can use a mouse for dragging. Yes. This is Buxton's three-state model. 0 state, now you lower your mouse. Then you go to the first state for tracking. You button down the mouse. then you drag it, then again you go to the first state, that is bottom up, then again raising the mouse to again zero state. Another keystroke model, basically it is a lower level model of GOMS. Here you have KPH, that is keystroking, pointing and homing. Then again you have your DMR, that is drawing, mental preparation and response. Basically the times are being empirically determined, and the T execute, or the time for the execution of the entire keystroke model, is based on TK, that is time for keystroking plus added with the time for pointing, added with the time for homing, added with the time for drawing, added with the time for mental preparation, and finally time for response. This in together put as T execute in KLM model. This slide shows an example of the KLM model. If you look at it, the goal is increase window. In the sense, closing in window again, as we took in the earlier goals model, the same window. So same example, closing in window. Here it can be done via a mouse or using the key. If you look at it, there we do not calculate the time in the GUMS model. Whereas in the KLM model, you will calculate the T execute. If you look at the time, here the table shows the time for both the key as well as the mouse. The total time for your keying is 2.3 seconds, whereas your mouse is 3.75 seconds. It is better to choose the key. So you can use the display-based interaction for these using your tag. Okay. So next part of it, socio-organizational issues and stakeholder requirements. We should first understand what a stakeholder wants, then what are the issues in their requirements, and ethnographic methods towards it. Identify the stakeholders, not just the users, because stakeholders are very important as your clients. They are your invisible workers, and you should understand it. Also understand the barriers towards managing a social, not technological. If you look at this figure, there is a critical mass. In the sense, with the number of users are increasing, obviously the cost of use as well as the benefit of use has also been increasing. This shows the critical mass. When the number of users and the cost increasing, then automatically the cost of use and the benefit of use is increasing. In the sense, the strong benefit or when the lot of users have been using, however, the cost even be increased when the 0 point benefit. You should be able to evaluate the benefits by capturing the requirements of the approaches via the socio-technological or the participatory design and even contextual designs. Who are your stakeholders? First, understand the stakeholders. So stakeholders is anyone affected by the success or the failure of the system. Primarily, who actually uses the system. Or secondarily, like they receive output or provide the input towards the system. There is an example for an airline booking system. Who are the stakeholders? If you look at this, you can have a primary stakeholder, secondary, tertiary, and facilitating stakeholder. Primary stakeholder is nothing but the travel agency staffs. Secondary stakeholders, your customers and management airlines. Tertiary, the civil aviation authorities, your customers, traveling companions, airline stakeholders are your tertiary stakeholders, whereas finally facilitating are just a designing team or the department which facilitates that. What is socio-technical modeling? If you look at this, you have different approaches towards understanding the socio-technological determination. You have custom and OSTA model. Custom model involves 6-stage process, mainly focuses on the stakeholders, where you describe, try to identify, and the needs of the stakeholders have been identified. Finally, it is consolidated. Whereas in the OSTA model, it is a 8-stage model where you focus only on the task, not just identifying the real needs of the stakeholders. If you look at these, it is better to have a CATWOE model, CATWOE. CATWOE model is nothing but the conceptual, compare, and identify, determine model towards the effect changes. If you look at the CATWOE model, see clients, okay. Client stands for C, actor stands for A, transformation stands for T, your Valhessian stands for W, O stands for owner, and E stands for environment. Basically, here we try to understand the clients who are the actors, transformators, owners, and environment towards a system or a model. The participatory design has to have the following methods: brainstorming, storyboarding, workshops, and pencil paper exercises to understand why a user is an active member of the design team. Ethics has to be followed in 3 levels of participation, both in consultative, representative, and conscientious. And to achieve job satisfaction, ethnography has to be maintained in the sense unbiased and open-ended things to be understood via the contextual inquiry. Now we will see what are the communication and collaboration models to be included. If you see, there are 2 theories, CSCW issues and theory. In the sense, how there is a mitigation in face-to-face communication or a conversation, and even text-based in a group working is to be followed. If it is a face-to-face, then it is primitive. Whereas the transfer effects, there is an issue in that. Rudeness of the colleague can occur. Eye contact, the video may spoil the direct eye contact. Gestures is good. However, the dietic reference and the head-shoulder videos loses this. Back channels are nothing but not just words to be included, or these has to be avoided. Adjunctory pass, one has to finish and then other has to continue. The context of the information is very important in these things. If you look at this spoken of is a dietic reference, then automatically this refers to the diaxis. In common ground, it will be understood as something else, whereas on diaxis, it will be helpful to re-understand the concept. Patterns of action coordinator, if you look at it, the conversation for action is very important and it is central too. The conversation for action, what is the CFA? If you look at CFA, we have circles which represents the states and arcs that represents the speech acts or utterances. There is a request, there is a promise, there is an asset and declaration. Using these conversation of actions, we try to either select or reject or withdraw the approach or the request. Now, the text-based communication, the types of electronic communication text can be like linear, non-linear, even spatial, two-dimensional, or directed or discrete. The problem with text is actually no facial expression, no? So we will not there is no much communication in the sense, no body language communication is included in the text. So if you look at this 2 figures shows the first one, it is grouped together. So you would not much effectiveness in the first. Whereas in the second one, when it is separated, there is much effectiveness. Spatial stimulated pinboard is good rather than your LHS. So this, when you are able to separate some composition box, it is good to have the spatial simulated. Maintaining the context is very important, and recall context was essential for disambiguation. Non-linear conversation, when you look at the non-linear conversation, it can be hypertext based, like threading. The conversation game, in the sense linear text can be used, then you can follow with one path, then you can add your hypertext. This is a conversational game. This shows the power positions in the traditional meeting room. This is a traditional meeting room, whereas this one is a shared meeting room, shared screen. Then the power position can be accessed via the keyboard. This shows a distributed cognition, implications of working together as a group. Now we'll see what is the task models. Under the task model, we should understand what people want, what they work on, and what they should know. For example, it should be the comparison between the system analysis and the task analysis, and even cognitive analysis and the task analysis. it should be decomposed. The task should be decomposed. That is our primary aim. It should be decomposed into subtask. Subtask, it can be decomposed via HTA as a grammar. For example, passing a big sentence into letters, nouns, or phrases like this, using syntax and lexically. The past scenario can be used via HTA. Diagrammatically, it is shown. Cup of a tea can be paused in the sense this is actually the thing to be followed. You boil, you empty the tea, like you pass few sentences. Then finally you refine it. This shows a refining HTA for making a cup of a tea. So types of plan, you will have a fixed sequence, you divide that, you can even have cycles, time sharing and mix it. Task description hierarchy is very important. It is like we have three types of branch point in taxonomy. Normal taxonomy, objects must be in both their multiple classifications and the weakest case. If you look at that, it is XOR and an OR models in the branch point of taxonomy. And you always consider a larger TDH for this types. We even need to understand the entity relationship techniques where there is a relationship and an analysis between focusing on the objects, actions, and their relationships. So first, what is an object? Object can be a concrete object, actors, or a composite object. Concrete, simple things. Composite, set or tuples. Actors are human actors. And attributes are nothing but like they need not to be computationally complete. Actions are a set of actions that is associated with them. It can be implicit or explicit. If you look at this, this shows both the implicit and explicit example of object and an action happening. Thank you.